Okay, these linings have been on there since 1995, and I had a job down at Lake Powell, Utah at a place called Bullfrog, and I hauled my stuff down there. I went down in January of 95 and didn't come back till, well, I hauled the cat out of there July 7th. It was miserable. Anyway, before I moved my stuff home, I took this Lowboy up to a local diesel shop, and I needed brakes and I think wheel seals on this tag axle. And so what they did is they pulled the whole hub with the wheel assembly on. I don't blame them for that. But what happened was they put the left wheel on the right side and the right wheel on the left side. Okay, on a Bud wheel you have on the left side of the truck you have left-hand threads. So to tighten you'd go counterclockwise. And on the right side you have right-hand threads. So by moving them around he put right-hand threads on the left side. And so over on the right-hand side he put the hub with left-hand threads on it. And I was coming through town with the 9 on, and I'm at the stoplight there where you saw in my last video where the McDonald's is, and there's a Chevron on the other side. And all of a sudden my passenger side door on Old Kenny opened up, scared the crap out of me. But there was a guy there and he says, "Hey, you're about to lose your wheels on the back." And I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, that very back axle on your right side, passenger side, the whole wheel assembly is about to fall off." And I'm like, oh great. So I limped through the stoplight, went clear up under the overpasses, across the Snake River, and turned onto Highway 39 where it was 4 lanes, and I got over. And what had happened is all the lug nuts had come loose. Okay, they didn't undo the lug nuts. They took the whole wheel and hub and everything off. And so because they put left-hand threads on the right side, they jiggled loose, and that's why Bud Wheels uses the right and left-hand threads so that your wheels don't come loose. Well, not going in straight. My front axles are KB axles, which are obsolete. This rear axle, I don't know what it is, but the drum is a Dayton drum. And so I don't know if this is a Dayton setup, but if it is, it totally makes sense, because Dayton are the idiots, I believe, that invented the Chicago wobbler. And if you don't know what a Chicago wobbler is, go to Chicago and watch those container trucks and stuff drive around with the wobbling wheels. They're not a Bud wheel. They have no studs on it. Well, they do have studs. It's a clamp, a wedge system. The dumbest thing ever. Nobody at a tire shop can put them on straight. It's ridiculous. So that's why we call them Chicago wobblers. Okay, this is how you put these shoes in. You just put your top one on first, and then you've got this big spring over here, and you hook the spring in here, hold this out like this on an angle, push the roller into the S-cam, and pull your shoes around, and there you go. And you got 2 of these springs to install. There you go. Easy peasy Japanesey. Okay, I don't like doing things manual way. This Sunday, I want to go relax. I want to get this done. So, okay, these are the studs that go in here. And they won't fit tight, so I got a bearing mount them in to hold them. And that's what I had before. So you spray this stuff on there, primer, makes this is bearing mount, retaining compound. This will make it stay put. This one's actually fitting tight. Okay, I got the studs in, bearings in, lube. You put 90 weight on the outside of these seals before you put them in. And you put it on the inside before it goes on the hub. And I stick a hammer and just tap it in. Okay, I got 4 rims back from the powder coater, and he got these done faster than I thought, but probably because my brother does sandblasting, so I got him to sandblast them so they didn't have to. Okay, I want to show you how this stinger axle works and how it transfers weight back here. This is the only axle on the trailer that's air ride, and then this is your pivot point for it to pivot, and this is the pivot lock. It's engaged, and you can back up empty with this locked, or you can back up loaded, but don't try to turn any corners, and don't drive away loaded with it locked. Or as you can see, it's been torn off twice. But anyway, the way these trailers work is right here, this unit is bolted on here, but under here it has some ears, just like how I unhooked the gooseneck. See, it has the ears, or the round pins, and then these deals that loop over it. And then there's just a couple bolts, one on each side, that hold it up there. And then the way it works is everything, all the weight on the trailer sits right here. And you see this big shaft? That's where all the weight goes. And then this is a subframe, and it loops up and it goes down to the center of the walking beams. So what it does is, if you've got 40,000 pounds on these tandems, you're going to have exactly 20,000 on this rear axle because of the way that's built. And I'll crawl under here if I can and show that to you. But this subframe, if you unhook the stinger, you take these blocks and slide them over here, and then they touch this subframe, and then all your weight goes exactly down onto the main, or the center of the trailer here. But what it is, okay, here's your walking beams, and then here's your other trunnion and your shaft. And see, this subframe comes right here. And so when you put a load on the trailer, nothing is placed, the load isn't placed all right here. It's placed clear in the back, clear back there. And then that pushes down on the booster, and then up through this subframe. You can see it's a pretty good size web and a flange on it, and it comes up here. And then to hold these tandems straight, those are I think like a 2-inch thick block of UMHW, ultra high molecular weight plastic. And Sam in New Zealand asked me when I went around the corner in that one video if I hit the belly dump because it made this awful sound. Well, no, that's not what it is. It's this suspension back here creaking and groaning. But I'll show you what makes the popping. So you go around the corner, and when you go around the corner, it pushes on those blocks and they're wore. So this subframe comes over against the frame here. And this is the groaning and squeaking you hear. The trailer is called a Murray Omega. And this was one of their early prototypes of the Omega. It's supposed to be rated for 60 ton. But my trucking partner back in the early mid 90s, I've got a picture, I'll see if I can find it and show you, but he had a D9L on here. And he had to walk it clear as far forward as he could because the trailer was so close to the ground. So anyway, you can get 60 tons on it. I have had a Fiat Alice FA31 on it. An FA31 weighs 137,500 pounds. And they wanted me to move it about 60 miles. And I got it on there, and I had to pull it so far forward, and all you could get was your fingers under the beams. This trailer to replace it, I'm going to guess, is probably about $250,000 the way it's set up. So I have no plans to replace it. I ain't got that kind of money to spend on a Lowboy. I had a trucking partner, and that was how I got this trailer. Is he wanted to do heavy haul on his own, and he wanted to keep all the gravy, and I said that's fine because it was the only way I was going to get a trailer. So basically he just made me, in rent, he made me the monthly payment, and I had it financed for 3 years. And we got it paid for, but unfortunately halfway through the deal he passed away. But this trailer this was one of Murray's own personal trailers in their fleet, and they sold it in the early 90s, and it went to Saudi Arabia during Desert Storm. Some guys, a guy from Washington, from Redmond, and one from North Carolina, bought this trailer and a bunch of other equipment and sent it over there to haul tanks. And they had a lot of like 3 and 4 axle non-ground bearing detachable neck trailers, which is exactly what they needed over there. So anyway, this thing shows up in the port with the Jeep all on the trailer and a big neck to it and all chained down. They just looked at it and went, what the hell do we do with this? So it sat in Dubai the whole war, and then the government told these guys that they wanted them to take about half of this stuff back. So they took this trailer back, and it ended up in, I don't know, that military base, is it South Carolina? I think it is. Anyway, we found it for sale, and I bought it. What I'd like to do is, a lot of Australian guys really have a problem with the way we move equipment here over on the western part of the United States, and we have to use this stuff because of the bridge law. And I'm going to show you what Formula B is. And Formula B determines the spacing on axles, the number of axles, and how much you can carry on an axle. And I'll show you a weight map, the stuff that I have to use on my permits. But in the United States, at least here, if an overpass structure, bridge structure, is under 16 feet, it has to be signed. And if it's over 16, you won't have a sign. And so we're limited in height. So when I put the 9 on, from the ground to the top of that stack's 14 foot 7 inches. And when we put the excavator on, we're like 14.8, 14.9, sometimes 15.2 if we don't get it tucked down. So we don't want to hit any overpasses, so we always take a tape measure and we get it down as low as we can. Now in Australia, I love those trailers where you got hydraulic ramps that fold down. Sam had a video. I'll put a link in the description below to his video. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention. Sam lives in New Zealand, but I think he lives in Morador. Lord of the Rings, get it? Anyway, he's a logger in New Zealand, which is pretty cool. I had no idea New Zealand had those high mountains and that much timber. And so there's a link down below to his channel. They call them low loaders, and New Zealand uses the same type stuff as Australia. But they got hydraulic fold down ramps, and they drive 37s, 9s, 10s, whatever, right up on the deck, and they got a ton of tires, and then these trailers expand. But the problem here, the reason I could never use anything like that here, is your distance between axles isn't great enough, and also you're too high. Those decks look to be 36 inches maybe in height, and on my Lowboy with nothing on it, from the ground to the deck is 30 inches. But because of the way this trailer's made, it's made out of T1 steel, high tensile steel, and it has a camber in the deck. When I put the 9 on, the camber goes out and it goes the other way, and it measures 18 inches from the ground to the top of the deck, which gets me down lower. So that's why manufacturers build this kind of stuff. So for those of you in Australia, I would love for somebody to crawl under one of those trailers and give me a detailed view of how that system works and how much weight, and you can put it in metric stuff, I'll convert it, how much weight per axle, per tire, per square inch, whatever system you use. And do you have a bridge law like we do, where you have to have a certain spacing between groups of axles, and if that determines how much weight you can haul. Anyway, it'd be interesting to take a look at that. I'd love to see it. So if you know that information, put it in here. If you can point me to a good video, I'd love to see that. So thank you. Okay, here's the wheels finished. I got 4 of them done. On the right side, got new chrome lug nut covers on it. Now I just need paint. Get the rest of the wheels done and some paint.